Hi everyone, good afternoon or still good morning. Yeah, welcome to the section about serving every citizen, adoption, accessibility in online services. I have three wonderful speakers here with me this morning. I have Ashley Bellinger, which was the Director of Digital Credentials, Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat. I have Victus Johansdotter, who is the Chief Marketing Officer for Digital Iceland Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs in Iceland. Just traveled far away to join us here. And we have Mark Vermeer, Director, Digital Government, Ministry of the Interior and Kingdom Relations in the Netherlands. He's also traveled far to join us this morning. We will be starting with opening remarks from our three wonderful speakers, and we'll welcome our audience to ask questions. And I want you to get your questions ready while they're giving their opening remarks, because it's going to be a wonderful session. So I would pass it over to Ashley. Ashley, over to you.
Thank you. So first, I just want to say thanks to the organizers for having me today, and thanks to the wonderful speakers who have traveled far to engage in a topic that I think is very important when it comes to digital services, which is making sure that as we move more and more of our services online, we're being accessible. I wanted to start my opening remarks today just by celebrating a very small milestone for the Government of Canada's digital transformation journey. It was 5 years ago, not today, just 5 years ago, because I don't know the exact date that the policy was introduced. But 5 years ago, Canada introduced their Canada Digital Standards. And I, being a young and fledgling UXer at the time, was really excited to see that the number one digital standard is design with users. And I will tell you, I have pointed to that number one digital standard on a regular basis, telling people why it's so important to work with users, to speak to the people that we are designing services for when we are thinking about these things from the beginning. I'm going to give a little bit of an observation from my time working in government in digital transformation. I spent the last 7 years leading teams doing service design. And what I've noticed is that for the most part, we like to pay attention to designing with users, that number one standard, when there's a digital transaction that's about to happen. So we think about the point where someone is going to go online, do some searching, and then apply for a service. And we start to talk about what that experience is going to be like. And we think, okay, so we're going to need to make sure that there's a really good UI, and we're going to need to make sure the content's really clear, and we have to make sure that we're navigating people through this digital experience in a way that's going to give them access to the services. And we often measure success through things like usability testing or user testing. And then we measure accessibility by whether or not people who we think are going to struggle with that service are able to actually get access to it. I want everyone in this room today to challenge themselves to think about the different opportunities we are missing when it comes to accessibility. So in the keynote speaker addresses this morning, I'm not sure if folks remember, but there were a couple of things that people pointed to. And it's about the value chain and how we create digital services in government. Before we even get to a digital transaction, we have folks who are working on policies, and we have folks who are working on programs, and we have folks who are coming up with legislation and regulation. All of these things have an impact on how the digital service is going to play out at a later point in time. And the thing that I would just like to highlight today, and it's one thing that I've been advocating for in my time here in the Government of Canada, and I've worked on various different projects trying to improve services for Canadians. And I would say that we need to not focus on why we need to design with users, because that is a very obvious answer. It's when we design with users. And my personal battle cry, and the thing I'm going to champion, is that we need to design with users at every step of the value chain when it comes to program creation or legislation or policy. We need to be talking to people at the very point in which we are starting to think about things that we're going to put out there to positively impact their lives. So I'm gonna start with that little opening remark, and hopefully in the discussion we get to talk about some examples of how we can be really inclusive in our approach, designing at all stages through policy to program to digital service continuum. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I have slides because I love slides. My name is Vigdis, and I've traveled a long way. That is true. I just mentioned an hour ago, I'm still gathering my brain cells after traveling yesterday. So please bear with me if I mistakenly use incorrect words. Hopefully you'll just laugh and we'll have some fun. But I'm the Chief Marketing Director at Digital Iceland. So Digital Iceland is an entity within the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. So we have a big mandate behind us. We have really good backing in terms of implementing everything that we're doing. Well, I guess my slides are not here yet. So I will share that with you guys perhaps later, but in terms of, we have the really good backing there within. So we have both the mandate, we have the money and everything from there. I was brought on the team, one of the first ones to be brought on the team in current state, and the focus went really much on user centricity, user experience, and the look and feel, the branding of everything. So everything, trying to make everything, you know, all these really complex things look like they were really easy, really, really simple. So making something really complex look really simple, that's when we feel that we have done a really good job. I have been obsessed with creating communities. So we have on our website, which I was going to show you, and you would see the brand that we're trying to focus on. You can just go on our website, and it's Iceland.is community, we call it. We are currently, we're a small country, about 250 people within the community. So it's people from the agencies, people from the teams that are the developers, but everybody's working from the same starting point. So we have a content policy, we have accessibility policy. We train each and everybody that will be writing or developing anything from the same values, core values. And our digital policy, which was first published in 2022 on my birthday, so I know the date, really says that it's digital services for everyone. So our goal is making sure that everybody that wants digital services is capable of getting the digital service. And we got a lot of complaints, and probably every country has that. You have a policy, and then you can get some feedback on the policies. And we got really a lot of feedback from groups from the elderly, from the disabled, and things like that. You don't mention us, you're forgetting about us when you're thinking about digital. But we are really thinking about everyone. So we are at a unique state in Iceland that about 95% of the working population has EID. We also have a central national registry. So we have a head start to many of the larger countries. We're able to test and run with things really quickly. So we know who you are. When we built the application system, it was built through the EID, and we can run through it quickly. So we are at the state where most European countries are not working on, how do I say this, the specific groups that lack capabilities. Because I don't like talking about this disabled or the elderly, because I know a lot of elderly people that are really digital, and they do everything. So for me, it's discriminating to put people into that types of categories. But we have Claire talked about this. We have people with disabilities, and then for a certain amount of time. But if you're able to authenticate yourself, then we can do everything digitally. And we have already, within the Ministry of Welfare, we're working with them in terms of those who cannot get the PIN for the EID are able to get a third-party support in aims of getting the digital service that they want, if they want it. But we have to do it in a multiple level. So we have to have the normal services as well. But we have worked a lot with the brand. On the website, we really focused on in terms of just fonts and colors, and we have what type of language. One agency project manager was really upset with me, felt that you guys are just dumbing everything down. We will be a stupid country, a stupid nation if you keep changing all the text in a way that we're doing. That person was a lawyer and really felt that we were lawbreakers. And I think I have many voodoo dolls of me somewhere, but it doesn't. I don't feel it yet, at least. But just the fact that if we start by making things look nice, making sure that the information is in a way that it doesn't take somebody else to explain it, is something that we really learned from the users. But you can have all the details and the legal jargon just on the side. But usually we wouldn't even mind if we were getting married at, I don't know, the fishery industry, fishery agency. We just want to get married. So the name of things, how we do it, we kind of get lost in there within. So yes, I feel I'm amazed at grateful that there are a lot of people in the room, but we should have an auditorium for this. This is really important stuff.
Thank you so much. Mark?
Bonjour, mesdames, messieurs. Je m'appelle Mark Vermeer, je suis d'Hollande. Je suis enchanté d'être ici, mais malheureusement, c'est ça mon français. Donc, je vais continuer en anglais. Good morning, everyone. I don't have slides, I have notes, they're always here. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Mark Vermeer, and I'm responsible for the digital government in the Netherlands, including, or especially focusing on online public services, be it online or offline. Perhaps first, I would like to dwell on why I think the topic of this panel is so important. And that's because digital society is a priority for the current Dutch government. We want a digital society that's inclusive, humane, and fair. That is why we approached digital society from a public values perspective, and I heard you talk about that as well, Vigdis. And as a digital government, we feel that we should lead by example on working as open and transparently as possible. Fundamental rights and values such as non-discrimination or data protection are at the core of the digital transformation and digital society, and this is embedded in our agenda for value-driven digitalization. In this agenda, we ask ourselves three fundamental questions. And the first one is, do we leave no one behind? I heard you talk about this as well in the digital transformation. The second is, can people trust the digital world? And the third one is, do people have control over their own digital lives? So that as a digital government, we work value-driven and transparent for all. And we believe that innovation can go hand in hand with policies that embrace the values of our society. Now, perhaps a little bit about the context of the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, we have, in general, a highly educated population with comparatively high digital knowledge and skills. However, about 3 million Dutch citizens, on a total of about 18, do not have sufficient digital and administrative skills And those administrative skills are perhaps even more important than digital skills per se. For example, for applying for a digital allowance or other conditions, to be able to do this business independently with both the government and the private sector. These are still high numbers and we must leave no one behind. Therefore, in 10 years from now, we want citizens to rely on a government that's easily accessible to everyone. Now, this panel is both about adoption and accessibility. Adoption, I would say ease of use, is something that has been largely achieved on the level of individual government organizations in the Netherlands. We try to deliver services from the perspective of people's daily lives rather than the government organizational perspective. For example, we use live events that are the starting point of proactive public service delivery, live events such as starting a study or becoming a parent, stuff like that. And this approach ensures that services throughout the government are more in line with the social environment of citizen businesses. But this is mostly on the level of individual government organizations. My task is to try and achieve this at the level of a whole of government. And that's unfortunately slightly more difficult, of course, and I suppose we will go into that a little more in a few minutes. Let me also say something about accessibility. Just like Vigdis, we find that very important. And let me mention two initiatives that contribute to accessibility of government services in the Netherlands. First of all, we are strengthening local places like community centers and libraries to assist citizens in better understanding and applying for public services. We have a network of digital government information points, about 800 of them, where we try to help citizens with questions about digital government services. They're on site. It's the assistance is fully offline, and it's free. And you can, we work with volunteers who generally have a little more time than government employees to help people that need a little bit more instruction. And as I said, these are free of charges. Second of all, we introduce employees called government service providers. Professionals who take people by the hand to arrange matters with public service providers, trying to solve the, paradox that government services for underskilled citizens tend to be a little bit more complex than the services you and I use every day. And these government services professionals are trying to make life easier for those people who struggle applying for especially services provided by multiple government agencies at once. I think I'll leave it here, and I suppose we'll have further discussion.
Thank you so much.
Guided by you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much to all three of you for wonderful opening remarks. The one thing I was able to hear from Ashley that stood out for me is when to design with users. Very important, and I'm sure we're going to have some questions to follow up on that. From the Icelandic government, I was able to gather that creating communities was very important to you guys, and working through the content policies and making sure accessibility is in everyone's mind is really important. And from the Dutch perspectives, and you also mentioned leveraging community centers, leveraging volunteers to help with people free of charge. I think that's really important to stress as well. And you mentioned these that is embedded in the digital society that the Dutch government is leading, inclusive, humane, and non-discriminatory. So thanks a lot, and want to open the floor for questions at this point. And I would really like someone to be so brave to just get this going. And we got a hand at the back there, and in front. Yeah, wonderful. I'm going to take 2 questions at a time to get started. Any other hand?
Here in the front.
The lady in front. Thank you. And we have another lady standing, so we'll start with the lady in
I think we'll start with the lady standing because I'm sitting.
All right. That's wonderful. Thanks a lot.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Ashley, I'm going to take up your battle cry because it's also something very near and dear to my heart. And my question for you, and maybe for all of the panelists, is how? So I work in experimentation, and one of the things that we constantly struggle with is how, where, and with whom we can collaborate. Who can we reach out in our context, in the Canadian population, to involve in all of these processes, not even, like you said, at the endpoint where we're building the tool, but back in the policy development when we're trying to actually gather our information to go to Parliament and all of those things at each of those steps of the way, not just the endpoint. So I'd love to hear your ideas on how we do some of that.
Thank you so much. And we'll take the second
My
question
turn.
now, Fredo. Open.
I thought I was just going to be first just to make everyone else brave. And now I don't know what to say. But I will say first, thank you, all of you, for coming, and for Vigdis for traveling so far to come see us. I work in accessibility, and I've worked, from the service, delivery standpoint, and now I'm in policy and government. And I guess the question I have, mostly for Ashley, because I'm also new, I'm a guppy in the government, is how you went from where you are now and becoming a director, and I guess for Vigdis as well, enacting that change top down and bottom up, because I can tell that it's not just top down, it has to come from the bottom too. So how do you make it so that whenever you have, let's say, a goal, to ensure that you have both sides coming together to meet in the middle and to do your, testing, and to do your, feedback and revision and the cycle of continuous improvement? How do you guys go about doing that?
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Afraid open. And anyone wants to start? Take 1 or 2 questions.
Okay, I can start. So thank you, both of you, for those questions. The how, I will say, is always difficult. And I think if there's one piece of wisdom I can offer, is that we're on a journey. Most governments are on this digital transformation journey. And we're not going to get it right the first time around. And we need to make sure that we are learning. And I heard you say that you were part of experimentation and what that looks like. We need to be learning in a systematic way, and in a way that we are happy to kind of share our failures and be able to learn from those things. So I have a few ideas. I will not say that I have successfully carried out these ideas in any fashion quite yet, but I'm still working. I feel like I'm still a young public servant, and I have a long road ahead of me. One of the things I would definitely say, particularly when it comes to being inclusive and making sure that services are accessible, is that it's really important to work with a group of folks that I like to call the unusual suspects. So when I did UX training, UX research training, and I'm not going to tell you when that was because I don't want you to know my age, we were told that, it's okay if your service meets the needs of about 80% of people, because, that's all you can ever really expect. Those other 20% of people, they're just going to have to go offline and get services elsewhere, right? And that seems like a very two-tiered kind of system. And I would say that the best approach you can take is the opposite. So go and work with the 20% of people who are going to actually experience barriers to accessing services, because those 20% of people will allow you to discover any potential barriers that the other 80% might actually experience. So take a bit of a different approach and go and talk to folks in the 20%. I'm gonna just try and wrap this up a little bit. quickly so that I can not take all the space here. But in terms of working with communities, I think it's really important to not think about them at the point where you need something. You need to go and work with different communities who you have identified as, potentially being your target audience before you need something. You have to build a relationship. You have to understand what it is those folks need to be able to be engaged meaningfully. And then once you've got a relationship that's established and you have a rapport, you can start to ask questions about the things that they need. You need to be building trust. It's not just trust in the digital service. It has to be trust in the government, trust in the public servants who are out there designing things. I'm not going to talk about the top-down question. I'm happy to talk to you about that. I have lots to say, but I want to give the space over to other folks. So off you go.
Thank you so much.
Mark,
Wow.
should I start?
Please go ahead.
We, as in terms of how, I've lost you in the room. Hi. We are action to policy driven, and that has been the key to the success that Iceland has seen in the last few years. So our strategy is delivery. So proving concepts, making sure that we have scopes, that we take small bites at a time. We train the policymakers. We include them in when we're creating the services, when we're looking at workshops with agencies, then we include them to the ministry, to the policymakers, so everybody understands, and that's when we include people, users as well. So you do the users testing. I disagree with you in terms of focusing on the 20%, because we are so quick in fixing things for the 80%, and that will give us more time to. They will clean up a lot of mess in terms of just data getting from one place to another, and all the APIs and all the tech stuff. They will clear out those things, but that will give us. For we are, as I said earlier, so lucky that we are in this phase where we've been able to focus really, really well on those who really need more support in what we're doing. I can name an example. Our first real application was where we built the application system around was parental leave, and it is an online application where today people. It takes you about 5 minutes, but you fill out the form, the application collects everything from Icelandic health, estimated date of birth, your taxing, everything. You don't have to fax anything or print anything or do anything. You just have to name, if you want to name the other parent. Then you choose when you want to take leave. Then the application goes to, if applicable, to the other parent, selecting when that parent will take leave, and then it will go to the employer who will accept, yes, he or she or they are going to take leave at that point. And then it goes into the back-end systems of the parental leave fund. So if we would have focused on the people that are, for example, that are adopting or taking foster children, then we wouldn't have been able to test run on the regular market that would, the sweet ride through the system, if I can put it that way. And we have this most valuable product way of doing things, but we like to talk about the most lovable. So being able to have it a smooth ride through the system. That has been really helpful for us, and we've been able to learn from those who are not constantly being on the verge of things. So when we reach those people, we're able to connect with them in a completely different level. But just saying that, we do include them from the beginning, so we have the voices from the beginning, so we always have it focused. But it's a scoping thing. You can't do everything at once. And if we're going to do everything at once, we'll never get anything done. We have to start one room. Cleaning a house is not done at the same time. We have to start with the bathroom and then work our way through the kitchen and then go to the bedroom. And I feel like I have to say something because the bedroom and giving it over to you is
Shall I focus on the top-down, bottom-up question?
Yeah,
Is
that
my
sounds
mic
good.
working?
Yes.
Since you left that one, and the first question was a little bit more about the Canadian context, I think. First of all, I love your strategy is delivery quotes. I'll keep that one in mind. Before I was appointed as a director on the national level, I worked for the city of Rotterdam for quite some time. And I strongly believe that the city of Rotterdam, and any city, is better at providing services to its citizens than the Ministry of the Interior where I work now, or perhaps any national level agency, because they are closer to the citizens. And that's why I think that implementing a service strategy on the national level should always be based on whatever is left out once you only consider the sum of local level services. Because some people need cross-agency services. They need perhaps cross-city services. And that's where we step in on the national level and where we try to give guidance, but we strongly believe that we should build on the strength of local services and the services of specific agencies. Somewhat to my surprise, I found that in fact, local service providers, agencies have reached a kind of a limit to what they can do, and that they are now open to guidance on the national level, to somewhat more coordination, because they see, well, we have to be perhaps a bit more standardized. Perhaps there should be a national portal that gives this whole of government feel. So at least in the Netherlands, I feel there's some momentum for some direction at the national level.
You're welcome to come for a study visit.
Oh, I've been to Iceland before, but I would love to.
No, but it would be
that.
interesting because we talked about this. Richard is in the room. We were talking about this in the previous panel in terms of sharing thoughts and ideas between governments. And we have been very successful in building a platform, a government website, which is, not all agencies are forced to move their websites, but already 20 have willingly. We didn't have to ask them even. And we have 27 already working on it. And there we have, it's all about accessibility, because all these agencies have seen that they don't have the mobility, mobile things okay. They don't have accessibility standards. They don't have get the content policy and the training to do everything. So that has been a huge success, and it has made it able for us to build the trust with everybody, because we have all sorts of things in there that make it easier for everybody else to, even though you have some limitations in reading or understanding or languages or things like that, that is just solved for the agency. And then the agency can focus on their core service and not being the expert on accessibility. We can't be experts in everything.
Thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful. I see 2 hands went up as soon as we're wrapping up. 1, 2, 3. We have about 6 minutes. I want to keep it short and sweet. I'm going to welcome 3 hands, man in front with a suit, and then the lady in the back.
Every man in this conference is wearing a suit, I think.
Oh, yeah. So we can start with, yeah. Thanks for that. And then we come to you. I'm just going to let 3 questions. We'll see how we're doing with time. And
I'll keep it quick.
Each one of you will just take one of it. All right, over to you.
Okay. So, Mike, I'm a bit of a shit disturber, so I'm just going to put this out there. I don't like the word service. I think we should be talking about digital relationships where you have a back and forth with our clients, which are Canadians here in this country. just curious to know what happens, what are you doing to foster that relationship after the point of contact? So most services that we offer in a digital world, there's a point of contact where you receive something. You go off, you do work, come back and you give something back. Where is the relationship? And is there work being done on fostering that relationship with people in the community?
Thank you so much. The gentleman, and then I'll come to the lady over there. I'll say, not every man is in suit.
Hi, I just
No,
need
true.
to know that how you measured success.
How success is measured. Thank you so much.
The smallest question we've heard so far. You said 6 minutes.
Hi.
Yes.
So my question is, so we have online services, but when I think of accessibility, I think about accessibility to citizens who are in a remote area. So they don't have the access to the online services from their home or from their own personal devices. I know that Treasury Board and Government Canada is working on digital credentials. However, I'm not seeing, or maybe it's just me not being aware, but how do we get it kind of going faster so that we have standards in all the departments? For example, Service Canada has obviously adopted that. And so I work at Indigenous Services Canada, and I do believe a lot of it probably has to do with policy, but every time I try to follow up in my own department about where are we at with digital credentials, I'm just not seeing it happening fast enough. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice or pointers how to help expedite that in our federal departents.
Yeah, thank you so much. I see that question is very Canadian-centric, but I'm going to make it a global one as well, because the historical context is really important. So besides geographical accessibility, there are other layers of accessibility that prevent people from using a certain service. So I'm going to throw it open. So while you're thinking about your specific context in different countries, you can think about other forms of accessibility barriers in your country. But I know that question is very Canadian-centric because of our history in Canada, but I want you to think about how it applies to your respective countries as well. So you can decide to choose any one of the 3 questions. We have a minute each.
Okay, I'll start. We have a platform, My Pages, where we communicate with, and an app where users can communicate, and with a digital mailbox where, the end of the service, your application has been approved and things like that. So in a very short way of doing that. We have a lot of KPIs, there are a lot of things that we are measuring. We haven't still found the KPI, but we are looking at so many different things in so many different levels. But one of the successes is, for example, how quickly people adopt new digital service, how quickly it goes up. Does it stop at 80%? What do we need to get it further? And we've seen that usually people just Google things and we don't even have to do anything, and then it just jumps up to 85% usage already. But we do, in terms of the local, as I said earlier, we have great internet accessibility in terms of that. So our rural areas, you can hike the highlands and still be fully connected in Iceland. There are very, very few spots where you're not connected. So we have an advantage there. But in that sense, we have a lot of refugees coming to Iceland. So we have a different type of problem or project to reach those people. And they literally have their life in their hands. They don't have any documentation and don't have anything. So being able to have, but they have a mobile phone, and their culture and understanding the way their culture is through that, how we can communicate in that sense, has become really important for us to understand and learn, because we are seeing the regular usage of all digital services, because I love being a public servant, serving people, is that we are reaching over 60% now that are doing everything mobile. So yeah,
Yeah, thank
Minutes.
you so much. Yeah, a minute and a half. Mark.
So that leaves half a minute for me, right? And besides, people are probably quite interested in the Canadian context anyway, so I'll be very brief and just add to what you said, Vigdis, that a principle I haven't mentioned in the Netherlands is that every government service must be available offline. So we're never going to use online services only, precisely of the kind of because of the kind of things you mentioned. Let's go to Ashley quickly.
Thanks so much.
All right, so thank you for that question, and thank you for identifying that I work on digital credentials. I didn't broadcast that because I know that this is a very hot topic, and it's a tricky file that we're navigating some of our priorities at the moment. I would say that we're making progress on digital credentials. We are currently working on 3 priorities, one of which is actually making sure that federal public servants can offer services to Canadians and individuals seeking services from the federal government online at one spot. So we're currently working on this amazing thing called GC Enterprise Service, which will inevitably become kind of a replacement for Sign in Canada. And we're going to make that available across the government because right now we know that there are a proliferation of sites, many different logins, many different times people have to tell the government the same information over and over and over again. So that's our priority right now, but we haven't lost sight of the bigger priority, and it's definitely the way that the private sector is going, and there are other governments around the world that have EID. We're talking about that today. And while we're not going to be introducing any form of federal ID, we are going to be trying to enable the use of digital credentials because in this country we have lots of provincial digital credentials, provincial digital ID that could be used in order to gain access to the services. So I'm happy to go into that conversation if you wanted to find me at the lunch break. I also, by show of hands, have a little support group over here who have come to support me, who are all working on the digital credentials file at Treasury Board as well. So thank you for that question. And yeah, we're working on it, I promise.
Thank you so much. We have so much to discuss. I have questions to ask. I'm going to be asking questions offline. Always make your service available offline as well. That's what we get in from the Dutch as well. But thanks a lot for all your contributions, the questions. I know you have a lot to ask, so they're going to stick around somewhere around the room. You can just bump into them and ask your questions, but I really want to thank all our speakers this morning, going into the afternoon. I'm so eager for the afternoon, I don't know. Going into the afternoon, and I want to really thank you guys for coming, far and wide as well, for our Canadian representative as well. Thank you all for the audience for your wonderful questions and contributions, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.